Well, hello there, and welcome to a Q&A for the AT parenting community. My name is Natasha Daniels, if you aren't familiar with me. I am a child anxiety and OCD therapist and a mom to 3 kids with anxiety and OCD, and I provide resources for parents who are raising kids with anxiety or OCD. And I want to come on today to talk about support for parents who are raising kids with anxiety or OCD because it is sorely lacking for a lot of us. And raising a child who has those issues can be so overwhelming. And even at the best of times, when you have all your faculties and you're able to find resources, when you're overwhelmed, you're tired, your child's in crisis, it's really hard. And it's hard even if you are completely focused. So I want to talk today about what resources are available for parents and talk about the resources that I have created to help support you. So I want to jump in and talk about the main issues that I've seen. I've been doing this for quite a long time. So I had a private practice to help kids with anxiety or OCD. And I wanted to go more global. I wanted to help more people raising my own kids, and they started to have their own anxiety or OCD issues. And I was already, ironically, a therapist before I had kids. So there's irony in that. Anxiety and OCD is rampant in my family. I realized as a parent and not a therapist that it wasn't enough to provide therapy once a week. And it's hard to find an anxiety and OCD child therapist. But even with that, and even with all my skills, I realized that the things that I was doing to really impact my child's progress and long-term success was related to what I was doing in the moment when they were having anxiety, when they were having struggles, when they were having OCD issues. It was like in that moment how I was coaching them and also how I was responding to how anxiety or OCD wanted to hook me in was so key to everything. And that is why I decided to create online resources. And I started doing this about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe longer now, actually. So I want to talk about some of the struggles that we have as parents. And these are the 4 big ones that I see. And you can let me know in the comments. Let me go to comments because I feel like I'm not on the right page. If you're joining me live, feel free to say hi. I am streaming this in many different areas. So I'm streaming this on multiple different groups. So you might be on my page, you might be in my large Facebook group, and you might be in my series page. Hey, Valerie, it's good to see you here. Dealing with contamination, which is a really common one. So feel free to tell me where you are or what your child is struggling with. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the resources. So just know that I am streaming this in 3 different locations, but your comments will only show up in the area that you're at, if that makes sense. So the first one that I noticed is just this like feeling of alone and feeling of overwhelm. And so it can feel like a very isolating experience raising a child with anxiety or OCD. Your friends don't get it. And if you don't, I'm going to just go on a tangent for a second. If you don't give StreamYard permission to use your name, I won't know your name. So if I'm not saying your name, I see your comment, but it just says Facebook user to me, just so that you know, because I like to be personal. You're welcome for the training. I'm struggling with anxiety and OCD with my 11-year-old son. From PA. My child is struggling with just right OCD. And so in the series that I just did, we were really talking about how it's so important to understand anxiety or OCD in all areas so that you don't miss things. But feeling alone can be really hard because you don't have maybe friends or family who get it. And so that can be a really isolating experience. The second thing is that you can't access help. And so when you can't access help, you might have, the desire to get that support and get that clinical expertise, but no one will take a child who is a certain age, or to find an OCD therapist is like finding a unicorn on top of a needle in a haystack. So it's really hard. Dan said 9-year-old daughter, no diagnosis, but she ticks off all the boxes for OCD and we're struggling. In Anthem, Arizona, you're actually really, really close to me. You're like 5 minutes away. You can make your name visible by giving StreamYard permission, which should be, I think, in the top of this video. I think it says give StreamYard permission and you click a link. And so they do that just because it's streaming in multiple locations. Child 1 struggling with an eating disorder plus OCD, child 2 struggling with severe anxiety, maybe some OCD, child 3 struggling with some anxiety. Wow, you sound like my house. Yeah, I love Anthem, Dan. Anthem's beautiful. I'm in North Phoenix, so I'm like just a little below Anthem. So feeling alone is a really big issue. The second one, I just want to go through these really quick. The second one is um, not having access to therapeutic resources. And if you do, like if you take your child to just a CBT therapist for OCD and they don't have the experience of OCD and they're not doing ERP, your child actually can get worse. And so finding that right help is really tricky. And then the third one is like knowing your role in it, right? So it's like, okay, even if I, don't feel alone and I have a therapist, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to answer anxiety or OCD? Because it's knocking on my door 24/7. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to parent? And the last one is your child feels alone. And that can be a huge barrier to progress completely. Because if I feel alone as a kid, I'm not going to be forthcoming with what my intrusive thoughts or feelings are or my anxiety. I may not tell you everything. I may not want to talk about it. I feel bizarre and weird. There's stigma. It hurts my self esteem. And so that alone piece for a kid is really big as well. Probably bigger, to believe it or not, than the parent feeling alone. I mean, this doesn't feel good because I know this as a person myself raising kids with anxiety and OCD, but your child feeling that is almost 10 times worse. Let's see. Thank you, Natasha, for what you do. Your content's really helped us. I'm so glad, Emily. And a 16-year-old son with severe OCD, perfectionism, and somatic. So you can see it shows up in lots of different ways, but how we approach anxiety or OCD is very well. How we approach anxiety is different than how we approach OCD, and that can cause a lot of problems if you don't understand the difference. And the other thing is, regardless of what theme I have with OCD, I'm going to approach it in a very similar way. I have a foundation. And that's what this my free series was talking about this past week, is creating a therapeutic home environment. My oldest child has OCD, and now my youngest seems to be experiencing anxiety. There's a high genetic component, and in my family, there's also a lot of autoimmune issues, and there's a lot of anxiety or OCD. So chicken or the egg? I feel like, it's really interesting how I have a lot of autoimmune issues, and we have a lot of anxiety or OCD. So my son has PANS, which just complicates things even further when you have kids with other comorbid issues or PANDAS and PANS, which is, creating that ripple as well. So when I saw this, and this was back in like maybe 2015, I saw this gap in resources for parents who are raising kids with anxiety or OCD, and especially OCD, I have to say. There's a lot of resources for parenting an anxious kid. They're a little all over the place. So it may not feel like there's a lot, and so it can still feel really isolating, but there was zero for OCD. There was nothing to support parents who are raising kids with OCD besides the International OCD Foundation, which was huge. But they can only do so much, and they do a lot, but there wasn't like this day-to-day, ongoing support, which was going to walk you through how to raise your kid. So initially, I started off with doing a podcast and just talking to you. And so I have AT Parenting Survival podcast. And I also have, and then I started a YouTube channel. And so I started to make videos directly for your kids and teens. So I thought, I have you pretty good. I have you covered. I am talking to you on my podcast. I think there's like 280 plus episodes on my podcast on how to raise a child with anxiety or OCD. I use a lot of my own personal experiences and a lot of my clinical experience. So I weave that in. And that's free, just tap that in, listen to it all the time. You have that support. And then I was like, well, I really want to help the kids directly too. So then I started to make a YouTube channel that would directly talk to your kids and teens. So then I can say on the podcast, here's a video for your kid to watch. And I thought, okay, I got you covered. Like I can say, do this and then have your child watch that. But that still isn't enough. I was getting a lot of questions and a lot of emails wanting so much more support. And so, let's see. I just want to read your comments too, so I'm not ignoring you. For a 6-year-old girl who's afraid of being alone in the house and sleeping alone, what would be appropriate points to offer her to work on tackling their fear? I would actually, and I'm not going to do too much advice giving in this Facebook Live because that's not the purpose of it. I do have Facebook groups that you can get that support in, but I'll just answer you really quickly. I always ask my kids. In fact, my son yesterday wanted to drink a protein shake, and he has ARFID, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, with OCD and PANS. And we found these little Boost protein shakes that are like 530 calories. I was like, it's like the best find ever. And he said, I want to do an exposure because he's trying to earn like this VR thing. And he said, I said, well, drink a Boost, and you can get some points for that. And then he said, well, how many points will I get? And I like to deflect back to my kids. It kind of gives me a good gauge on what they think it's worth. And so I said to him, how many points do you think it's worth? And he said 3 or 4. And I thought that was reasonable. So I said, okay. So whenever we can push it back onto them and empower them to be to collaborate with those point systems can be really helpful. Macy said, Natasha, thank you so much for your videos. Actually, I forgot I can put these on here. That's much better, right? My 7-year-old daughter is not diagnosed, but has a lot of anxieties. She loves your videos for kids, and we use so many of your tools, naming your worry cloud every day. We have very limited resources where we are. Oh, in Fairbanks, Alaska. I was just there in November. I love your area. It's so beautiful. I'm glad I can fill in the gap. And that is what I'm doing for a lot of people. They don't have access to resources. We have people in the AT parenting community who are from all over the world. The United States has struggles as well. So I'm not saying that we don't have we don't have it locked up. We don't have a lot of therapists here that are available. They have long waiting lists, but we have people in Australia, people in Canada, people in the UK, in the AT parenting community. We have a lot of people globally because there's literally nothing for them to tap into. And you can't wait. You can't sit around while your child's on fire and just be like, I'm just going to wait for the public, mental health system to kick in. And then eventually when it does, it's like they don't know anything about OCD or they don't know how to treat these things. And so you're like, oh my gosh. So that's a struggle. So I did create the podcast and I did the YouTube videos to help support you. I wanted to create a community. And so then I also created the Facebook group that a lot of you are actually watching this in. We have I haven't checked it recently. I mean, there's over 30,000 parents in that Facebook group. And I can't be in there. It's just too many people for my social anxiety, but parents are supporting parents, and I pay to make sure that group is admin and, is supporting and loving, but that's a lot of people. And so I created a community for parents to be able to support each other. But that still wasn't enough because I was getting people to ask me, can I do therapy with you? And I'm like, I can't do therapy with everyone. And for those of you that know my history and my story, my husband suddenly passed away almost 2 years ago at this point, and I closed my private practice. It was just too much for me. And so I just closed it. I spent some time grieving, and then I revamped and I said, I'm going to just completely focus on my online resources to globally help people. And then I can be here for my kids, and I don't have to go into my practice. And so it worked out better for me. And it works better for you because now this is my full-time job. So when people say, can I see you as a therapist? My practice is closed now. It was open for almost 20 years. I'm old, but it's closed now. And so I created online courses and I said, I will make courses that do exactly what I do in my practice. They're not therapy, they're educational, but I'm a teacher oriented therapist. So I am skill building, I'm teaching. This is how I actually talk to people in my practice. And I said, I'll just make courses for this. And so I created the AT Parenting Survival School at atparentingsurvivalschool.com. And I started to churn out courses. I made how to teach kids to crush anxiety, how to teach kids to crush OCD, how to teach kids to crush social anxiety. And then just recently we came out with a class. I had how to handle difficult behavior caused by anxiety or OCD, how to handle sleep struggles. These are all different classes. So there's a lot of them. And Ayla just linked it for those of you that are watching somewhere. I don't know where the comments wind up going, but and then parents wanted a course directly for kids and teens with OCD. And so I created the kids and teens course on how to crush OCD. And that just came out actually last month. But that still really wasn't enough because a lot of parents want in-depth, ongoing, on-tap, 24/7 support. And so 3 years ago, I decided I'm going to really go all in and I'm going to create a membership community. And in this community, I'm going to be there on tap and I'm going to make it smaller. 30,000 people in a large public Facebook group is too much. So I wanted to also take it off of Facebook. I was like, I don't want to just do another Facebook group. I already have one. I want to teach weekly. I want to do Zoom classes. I want to address every pillar that I just talked about that's a problem. And so I created the AT Parenting community for parents who wanted more in-depth support. And I found that by providing that parents have a lot of options. You can tap into my free resources. You can binge listen to my podcast, have your kids watch my YouTube channel. For those that just want some temporary support, they can just get a course. But for those that really wanted to walk this journey with me, I provided the community, and I want to talk about what's in there. And I don't know who's saying these things, so I apologize for not saying your name, but I want to read some of these comments. I'm so grateful for this program, especially your time. My spouse is in complete denial of both my girls' anxiety, OCD, hoarding issues. My 18-year-old is now seeking treatment on her own. I feel so guilty for not seeing her issues much earlier. My 16-year-old is still home, and I'm doing this on my own. I signed up for 6 months to start. Well, I don't know who you are because your name isn't there, but I'm so glad that you signed up. And I just wanted to take this off. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to address you first. I am excited to help you because I do know, and this is kind of a weird thing, like I just know if people got the kind of support they needed, they would do better. And however you get it, whether it is, really digging in and trying to find that OCD or anxiety therapist in your home, or really just getting the tools to create a therapeutic home environment. I think even if you're seeing a therapist, a lot of therapists actually recommend that their clients go and join my community because it helps the therapist. The therapist is like, I have a very educated client now. I have a very educated parent, and now I can work with them. I would actually give free coupon codes to the clients, the parents that I worked with in my practice. And I'd say, take my course. I'm like, I'm going to save you like a bunch of money. Take my course. That's 3 sessions right there. Take it for free. And then it will save me time. Come back and we can have a much more educated, in-depth conversation. And they would, and those parents would do much better. Let me just read some of these comments. Hi, Natasha. In Arizona, my teen son's main issue is intrusive thoughts, images. He sees a therapist who has helped with this when he's in crisis, and it does help a lot. But there are sessions that he won't admit or talk about them. Is it harmful if I keep encouraging him to open up each time, or should I let him go at his own pace? Now, again, I'm not really here to talk about actual specific questions. I have a hard time ignoring them though, so I'm going to try to balance it. I mean, we don't want to sabotage therapy, but I think that is also key why we have to see ourselves as passengers. And I say this a lot. So if you listen to me a lot, you're like, oh my gosh, here she goes again. But it's true. Our kids are in the driver's seat and we're in the passenger seat. And our ultimate goal is to teach them how to help themselves so that even if they're not communicating these things to the therapist, like my son who's 13, he may not tell me everything, but he knows. I actually made him take my kids' course. And my daughter joins the Zoom support group calls in the AT parenting community. My kids are involved in this, and she's 11. But they know I have an intrusive thought or feeling, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. And they know they can plug and play. They know, oh, I'm having this thought. I need to do exposures. I need to play offense and defense. Like they know this language, and that helps too. I'm the mom that sounds like your family. I don't know where to start within your universe. Can you answer this? For example, what is the roadmap for someone like me? Well, I don't know where you're at as far as like if you've joined my AT parenting community. So if you join the AT parenting community, I'm going to go into what that is and what it entails because that is the purpose of part of this. But you want to start with education. And so if you took my series just recently, we were looking at where people are at. And if you are lacking education, you start with that. So you take an anxiety course or an OCD course, or you read a book. If you're in the series, I gave lots of recommendations, but start with education first. I think that's the important thing. We want to jump in, and I use this analogy in the series, like we want to jump in and put out the fire. But if you're not well equipped, you're not wearing, some protection, you don't know where the fire is, you don't know what puts out the fire, then you're going to be operating blindly, which can be dangerous for everybody. We need this. Let's see, for example, where does one start in the universe? There are so many videos to watch. Is there a roadmap? And there isn't a roadmap for my free resources. And that is partly why I did the AT parenting community, because there is a literal roadmap for the AT parenting community. And there is a forum, and I'm going to go into this, but there are forums where parents can just talk to me directly, and they'll say, like, I'm overwhelmed. This is my issue. Where should I start? And they get free access to my classes, most of my classes. And so that's a good place to start too. And I'm going to go talk about that in a second. How do I help my 12-year-old that does not want help? He has meltdowns every time we start to leave the house. His main OCD is put on his hands. And I'm not going to answer these questions, so don't ask me clinical questions, and I'm not shooing you away. It's just that that's not the purpose of this Facebook Live. We will spend the entire hour talking about clinical questions. And so join my public Facebook group, ask other parents in there. They are really educated and they can help you as well. Just joining, so I'm sorry if I missed this, but if we join the community, are you available to answer questions, even if we ask them a couple of times before it sinks in? Absolutely. Yeah. So let me kind of explain and just put questions. If you have questions about the AT parenting community, that is kind of what I'm talking about right now for this Facebook Live. So the 4 issues that I wanted to really touch on was feeling alone, can't access help, and then that your child feels alone, and I guess it was those 3 areas. And I'm going to talk about how the AT parenting community helps with that. What's the difference between all the content you already have versus joining the community? And that's a really good question. So I'm going to go into that right now. There is a huge difference. It's not that you can't DIY it. I mean, you can. You can listen to all my podcasts and you can join my free public Facebook group and feel like you're not alone. That is true. The feeling alone part, let's just talk about that first. The feeling alone part is that it's very small. And so I, with my own social anxiety, and even with 30,000 people, it's actually over 30,000 people, really can't get my answers. I can't build connections and really feel connected. So in the AT parenting community, if you're feeling alone, a lot of those parents are really good friends now. I know that they have met offline. I know that they talk to each other outside of there. So we do have a member-only Facebook group. So that's completely separate from all my public Facebook groups. That's a AT parenting community Facebook group. It's small. It's about like a little under 1,000 people right now. Sometimes it goes up to about 1,200, and it goes between 900 and 1,200 depending on the month, because we have influx of members. People do well. Most members will stay for an average of 3 months. We have members who have been there for 3 years. It really just depends on what they're looking for. A lot of their kids get better. Some members stick around just to help other members. And so you have this community that is tight knit that you don't really have with other large public Facebook groups. The other thing is that there's a member website. So it's not just Facebook. There's a member website. And in the member website, it's a login. So you have to log in to get into it. There's a crazy amount of stuff. And I'm going to go into the resources and stuff. But one thing that I really think is worth everything is there's forums. And in the forums, they're kind of like bulletin boards. Parents can talk directly to me. And so I get an email for everything that's posted on the forum. I get an email and notification. And that's my full-time job, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. I got my coffee and I'm answering questions in the forums. And so there's threads where I have parents who are asking me questions. They've been asking me questions for 6 months. And I can go back and look at all the other things that we've talked about. And we continue with that. And so they're getting my ongoing in-depth support. There's parents who've been in crisis. They couldn't reach their therapist and they wanted a live person in that moment. And I'm not their therapist, but I'm there to give them that support and, my input of what I think I could do to help. And so having that warm line there is really helpful. So the Facebook group, the member Facebook group, is for members to help members. I go in there and I teach once a week. But the forums is like direct access to me nonstop, which is actually really helpful. I'm really seeking a sense of community, more access to you if I have questions. Yeah, and so I feel like the community is very tight, and access to me is direct, Monday through Friday. I try not to answer questions on the weekends because I'm trying to work on my boundaries, but I'm not always good at it. But I am trying, and so you do have access to that. So the other thing I want to say about feeling alone that I try to address is that we have Zoom calls. And so once a month, we have a Zoom call and the parents get to ask questions and support each other. I give my input. I really get to know parents really well on the Zoom calls that happen once a month. And then parents were like, wait, what about our kids? We want our kids to have this feeling as well. It feels so good to know that I'm not the only one in Australia who has a child with contamination OCD, or I'm not the only one in Canada, or I'm not the only one in Georgia, And so we created Zoom support group calls for the kids too. And so they also have once a month Zoom calls. We have one for the teens and one for kids. We separated them out. And so that helps. The second issue with not being able to access help And I want to make sure that I'm talking to you guys. That's great, Natasha. You have no idea how much you've already helped our family. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. My hope is to help people on any level that they need. So if people just need a podcast, I'm happy that helps them. Or if they just need a large Facebook group, I'm happy that helps. I know there are parents that want me to walk with them. They want other parents to walk with them. They don't want it to be random on Facebook. They want a website that is for the community. They want a warm line where they know they can literally reach me in my home at any time, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, because I have to have boundaries. I have kids, but that's very comforting to know. And then to have a Zoom call once a month where you see people and faces and you hear stories and for the kids to know that too, and I'm going to talk about the kids in a minute, is incredibly helpful. Maria, me and my 13-year-old both really need this. We're in the UK. We have tons of people in the UK. Most of the members are from the United States, but we have, I would say I did it maybe 5% UK, 5% Australia, maybe a little bit higher in Canada. So we do have a nice round group of people from different locations. So the second issue, besides feeling alone, is that, I talk about in the series, the first step is education. If you don't understand anxiety or OCD or how it can show up, you can't do anything else. You have to start with education. And that might mean that you grab a book on how to parent an anxious child, how to parent a child with OCD, or you take a course. You take one of my courses. There's other courses out there as well on how to parent a child with OCD. OCD and anxiety are different, very different. And how we approach them is different. People, they push them together, and that's dangerous because they are different. But if you join the AT parenting community, I kind of curate it for you. And so you don't have to pull all these things together yourself. You can say, okay, what do I need to learn? And so because I want you to learn very quickly, I want the community is very educated. The kids are very educated. I just did a Zoom call last week. Was it last weekend? No, it was 2 weekends ago. And we had a group of 7 to 11-year-olds. That's our younger group. It was 6 to 12-year-olds. And they were giving advice to each other. And normally if they're giving not poorly clinical advice, advice that I wouldn't think is clinically sound, I will interject and I'll be like, well, we don't want to do that because, and I'll try to educate the whole group. But most of the time I don't have to. And our last call, these kids, these 8 to 10-year-olds were giving advice how to do exposures and how to sit with the discomfort and how to, they were motivating each other. And I was like, oh my gosh, these kids are so incredibly educated. And they're not educated per se because of therapy once a week. That definitely helps if you have a really skilled OCD therapist or anxiety therapist. But it's because the parent is teaching them. They are learning, not just directly from my videos and stuff, but the parents are becoming really good coaches, which I do appreciate. Hold on a second. Let's see. I'm only going to answer questions that are not clinical, so I'm trying to separate them out. Are the kids' Zoom calls separate from those with OCD only or anxiety only or both? Or is the group made up of kids of either? They're everybody. And the reason for that is because a lot of times anxiety can morph into OCD. So you can't put blinders on. And I just want just right OCD, or I just want anxiety. And so it helps normalize it because some kids will just be talking about social anxiety or separation anxiety. Other kids will be talking about their OCD. And so kids get educated so they can spot things. If I have anxiety and then all of a sudden I'm starting to have OCD, I'm going to know that a lot quicker than anybody else because I'm hearing other kids' experiences, which is helpful. And I think it's important to have an eclectic, diverse group of people. We have kids in there who have autism. We have kids who have PANS and PANDAS, kids with Tourette's, kids with ADHD, kids with picking and pulling, body focused repetitive behaviors. And they'll talk about that and it helps normalize it. A lot of times I'll say, a kid will say they have an issue and then I'll say, who else has that issue? And all the hands go up on Zoom. And it's just so heartwarming to see just that love and support of you're not alone now. You just saw it. And I'll say, more than half the screen just raised their hand. You're not alone. And I love that. So would my daughter also be part of the Zoom calls? Would she have her own group? Yeah, parents have their group. And then parents have their group. And then the kids have a group and the teens have a group. There is a website for this. Let me put it up. Let me see if I can go back to comments. So there is the community if you want to know more information. I wonder if I click this, will it go back? Let me see. No, I guess it doesn't. Did the parents sit with the kids during the kids Zoom call? That is up to you. Some do, some don't. I think definitely the older kids probably prefer some privacy, but it takes some time. So are the courses that we as parents are watching as part of the membership? So are there courses that we as parents are watching as part of the membership so that we can learn to coach our kids? That's a great question. Yes. Oh, it does go back to the banner. So that's cool. Yes. So as a member, I give you free access to a lot of courses on purpose because I want you to be caught up as soon as possible. So when people ask me questions in the forums, I can tell when they haven't gotten the basic foundation. And so as a member, you get free access to one of my big classes. So you choose. You can pick how to teach kids to crush anxiety, or how to teach kids to crush OCD, or how to crush social anxiety. And sometimes parents don't know where to go or what to start with. And so they'll go into the forums and they'll say, I have a board on the forums that says, I don't know where to start. Because I want it to be as brainless as possible. You're already in crisis, or you're already possibly feeling overwhelmed. And so you just want something simple. And I do have a lot of resources. So it is easy to get overwhelmed, but not if you just, talk to me directly, or we'll guide you. You just post even in the Facebook group, say, I don't know where to go. And the members will support you because they're really, really supportive. And so you get one of those classes for free. So if you're dealing with a child with anxiety or OCD, I normally say take the OCD class because that's less intuitive. And then besides that class, then you also get parents were also talking about difficult behavior. And they're like, yeah, I took the OCD class, but my child's having such difficult behavior. I don't know how to handle that. And so I gave you free access to my class, How to Handle Difficult Behavior Caused by Anxiety or OCD. That actually has videos for you and videos for your kids. All my classes are under 3 hours. So it's like watching a movie and you're done. It's not a heavy time commitment. And then I have a moral OCD mini class because a lot of times parents don't know how to apply the things I teach to moral OCD, even though it's all the same. So I created a mini moral OCD class to show you and give you resources. And so you get access to that for free. I have a sensory anxiety class because sometimes it's sensory and not anxiety. You get access to that for free. And then there are parents who are saying, my kid doesn't want to work on this. And so I don't think I can really use your community or resources because, until their foot is off the brake, there's nothing I can do. And that's not true. And so there is Ellie Leibowitz's SPACE program, which is a parent-only accommodation, like pulling back accommodation program that focuses on what we do as parents. There is something that we can do. We can't control everything, but we can control our role in it. But people were not understanding the SPACE program. Some people were getting his book, Breaking Free from Childhood Anxiety and OCD, but they weren't understanding it or they didn't know how to apply it. And they said, can you explain it? And so I created a SPACE study guide course on his book and on his therapeutic approach. And I put it in my AT Parenting Survival School. And then I was like, why don't I just give this to members for free? They can access it, and then that will help them too. So you get that too. So as you can tell, that's over close to $400 worth of courses that you can buy at my school. If you're like, I don't want anything else, I just want, the courses, you can buy those directly, but you do get free access to them in the community. And the community I wanted the community to be affordable. And I mean, to have almost $400 worth of courses and to have these Zoom calls, support group calls. I go in there and I teach every Friday for an hour to answer your question. Somebody was saying, what time of day are the live classes? They're on Fridays. How do I get off of this? Okay. I don't know. Oh, there we go. Yeah, they're on Fridays, the Facebook Live classes, and they're on Facebook because people like that. It's convenient, but we upload it to the member website because I would say maybe 1/3, maybe a little bit less than that, of our members are not on Facebook. And you don't have to be on Facebook in order to take advantage of the AT Parenting community. And so we upload all the live classes. And we also let you know what the topic is going to be. The members vote on the topic. So every week, Ayla, the AT Parenting Community Manager, does a poll. You guys vote on the topics, and then I teach it on Friday. People will ask me questions under the thread of the topic if they can't make it live, and then they can watch the replay on Facebook because we try to make it as easy as possible. But also every course is uploaded to the member website. and you have the library of them on the member website. So the member website becomes a great search engine as well, because I created all these videos just for members, videos for you, videos for your kids, worksheets if you like worksheets. I brought in experts to talk about different things, and it's all on the member website. So the member website is a huge hub of resources that you don't get access to in on my regular website or my free resources. It's all made and curated just for the AT parenting community. And so you can always watch it on your member website. I know that was a little long-winded, but let me see. What are the classes like? Is it sort of like this Facebook Live and we're listening like a lecture type of thing? So my courses, and I know that's not what you're asking, but my courses at atparentingsurvivalschool.com are videos. And so those are videos with worksheets, and they're graphics, and they're hopefully a little interesting to watch. They're not like slideshows or PowerPoint, they're and so there's those. The live classes are like this, but they are very interactive in that parents will ask questions as I'm talking. And so we're having more of a discussion. Also, I remember some of those parents. And so I'll remember them from Zoom, or I'll have just been talking to them in the forums, or I know their kids really well because they're in our Zoom call. So I might say something like, well, I know that your child's dealing with, contamination. And so I would recommend approaching it this way or that way. So it is like this in that I'm talking, but there is a little bit back and forthness because I know some of those parents, and they're able to ask me questions as well. So I hope that makes sense. Hold on a second. Do you discuss in the courses anything about when a child incorporates one specific parent in their OCD and it involves dependency on that person? Yes. We talk about emotional contamination, which is typically why that is happening. And then it is also important to recognize that the foundation and the framework of how you approach OCD will be the same regardless of theme. And so I do talk about all the different subtypes and the themes. In the AT parenting community, we'll do live classes on emotional contamination, or when that happens and it impacts the family. But it's also important not to get tunnel vision and say, I only need to work on this. OCD is OCD. And so understanding the framework of how you approach any intrusive thought or feeling and compulsion or avoidance that goes with it is key. Sometimes we get caught up in our little box, and that's actually kind of a dangerous thing, because then we miss things that are that can pop up because it's whack-a-mole. So you might be dealing with emotional contamination right now where a parent is contaminated or a parent's triggering, but maybe next month you're going to be dealing with a completely different OCD theme that looks very different. But the approach will be the same. And that's what I teach. Is that the one I purchased for crushing OCD? I do not know. I have no idea what you purchased. So I do not know. But you can learn all about my classes at atparentingsurvivalschool.com. I do have one that is how to teach parents how to teach kids to crush OCD. And that's the one I was talking about, that are videos and graphics and not PowerPoint. And so that's different than my live classes. So I hope that helps. Okay. So I just want to go through this. So we talked about feeling alone, and then, that you get the member only Facebook group, you get the member only forums, and then you get the support group calls, the Zoom support group calls. When you can't access help and you want help, you get guidance and support from me in the forums on tap, right? And from other parents. You get the weekly classes, which is typically on Fridays, unless we're doing our Zoom call, and the Zoom call's on Saturdays. And then you get access to my courses. So you get access to all those courses. So your knowledge will have no problem filling up. So if you're like, I just want to, soak up this knowledge, that you will have that at your fingertips. And if you get overwhelmed, I'll just tell you exactly where to go and what to watch first. I normally tell people to go and watch the Crushing Anxiety or Crushing OCD course for parents. That's where I start. I can tell when parents haven't taken it because they don't have the knowledge. I'll be like, did you take the course? I'm like, 3 hours, carve it in somewhere. Some people are in crisis, and that's okay. And then I'll just say, let me help you. This is how I'd approach this situation. But when you have a breath, take this course. It's really important. And then sometimes they just want support from, Facebook members or other other community members have been there, done that. We have a large group of people that have kids from all ages. So we have parents in there who have toddlers. We have parents in there who have young adults who are still living at home. And so we have parents in there who have kids with pandas and pans. We have parents in there who have kids with autism or ADHD. We have older parents, younger parents. We have therapists in there. And so we have a very diverse, eclectic group of people that come with their own expertise. And I like that. One thing that we did a while back is we made a list of everyone's expertise, and parents volunteer to say, if anyone has a question on diet, I'm your person. If anyone has a question on supplements, I can talk to you. If anyone has a question on pandas and pans, this is the go-to mom. If anyone has a question on ADHD or 504 plans or IEP, this is a person. And I love that because we are a community, like we're a hive brain. Let's tap into all of our expertise. If I'm a mom who happens to be, a doctor or or I'm in the educational field, I have a lot of knowledge to share with this community that Natasha doesn't know. And so we tap into that. If you know you'll be unable to watch a class live, can you email questions to you in advance on a given topic so that you can watch, learn, or later once uploaded to your website? Yes, you definitely can. So if you're on Facebook, we actually prompt people to leave questions under the thread. So Ayla will post, this is the topic this week, and then people will post the questions. If they're not able to get on Facebook or they don't like Facebook, they can just email me and Ayla will, copy it and let me know, and so that we can answer your questions. We can go into the forums and post it. So yes, absolutely. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, and feel free to leave your questions of anything that I've discussed so far. The last one is your child feeling alone. And self-esteem, secondary depression, isolation, feeling guilt is huge, and it's a big problem. And so that was kind of a new thing that happened maybe like a year and a half ago. Was initially I didn't really create anything for the kids. I did create a whole bunch of videos that I made just for kids that aren't on my YouTube channel. And there were members who would ask for a video. They'd say, my child's dealing with this. Can you make a video for me? And I'm like, sure. And so I would literally make a video for the community on that child's specific issue that I know other kids are having as well. And so it was really helpful for the parent to say, here's a video on this. Let's watch this together. You won't find that on my YouTube channel, right? I mean, I'm not curating YouTube videos for you, but a lot of times the AT Parenting community members are the ones that are creating the topics for my YouTube channel and for my podcast, because they will ask me questions and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't have a topic on that. I'll do a podcast on it next week. I would say half my podcast episodes are coming because of a member of the AT Parenting community. So that's really big. Or we'll do a class on it, or I'll just talk to them in the forums. But they wanted more. And so what we wound up doing was creating the support group calls for kids. And kids can go on the support group calls with their videos off, with their audio off. They can just listen. I've had parents say, like, I just play it in the kitchen really loud, and we have the video off. And just hearing other kids talk, and we moderate it. So what happens is we start both Zoom support group calls with wins. I try to be very uplifting in my AT Parenting community. I don't want it to be like, some support groups can feel pretty heavy. And so we start off with all the wins, all the things, the small steps that have, that are there to celebrate. And we do that with the kids, we do it with the teens. And then the second half of the call is that, any struggle someone's having and advice that people can give. And so that's really helpful, because then the kids start to pipe in and give support to each other, which I think is really nice. I forgot where I was going with that. I think I was going somewhere and I totally forgot. That's okay. So the Zoom support group calls are there for the kids and the teens. The nice thing is sometimes they'll say, I'm having a struggle with this kid at school. They'll sometimes talk about things that aren't 100% related. And then the next month they'll come back and kids will be like, how did it go? Is everything okay? Or, oh, you talked about that struggle that you were afraid to go on that field trip. How did it go? And I love that. We always have new people, but I do love that, there's some continuity. I remember what I was talking about. And so people will start with no video on, no camera on, and that's fine. And that's a way to get your kid engaged, to say, I'm just going to play it and you can listen to it if you want, or I'm just going to play it. You don't have to be a part of it. More often than not, kids will then, want to sit in front of it and not have their camera on. And then we do this thing at the very end, even with the teens, because they like it, where they get to show like their pets or art or something that's about them, just to be like fun. And I'll notice that even the kids who don't have their camera off, like towards the end, like they'll turn their camera on and show us their dog or their cat, and tell their parents that they really had a good time. And They want to join next month. So we do get a really good response when kids actually join the Zoom support group calls on whatever level they're comfortable with. So there's that. And then the kids and teens were like, we want to talk in between. And so there was this desire, they wanted more support group calls, and I couldn't do more. Like once a month was plenty with all the other things that I have going on. But I wanted to connect them, and they were connecting with each other. And so we created the buddy program. And the buddy program is very simplistic. We're just basically, we have a Google Doc and we moderate it, and we make sure that it's safe, and we connect kids based on their age or their interest or their location. And so parents can find connections through the buddy program. And last call, we had a couple of kids who were like really connecting on the call. And it was so cute because they both were like, you're just like me. And he was like, you're just like me. And they were like, they both had like a hard time making friends. And they were talking about that. And at the end, they're like, it was very cute. In the chat, they're like, do you want to be my buddy? And when we got off, I was really concerned because that one parent was like, I don't know, I can't find this kid. And so I went on the Facebook group and like, we're searching for this kid. I couldn't say the kid's name because of confidentiality, but the parents did meet, they connected, and these kids are now buddies. And I love that. And this other girl was like, my best friend is my buddy. I met her a couple of years ago. We have met in person. We have, done things together, even though we're in different states. And so that is a beautiful thing. That was not the intention of the AT parenting community initially, but it is definitely a bonus. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on and I'm not. Sorry, is the parenting community a separate cost for the kid community? No, it is the same. And so I wanted to make the AT parenting community affordable. And so I made it $30 a month. It's a copay. It's a copay to have 24/7 support. My classes are $127 each. And you get almost $400 worth of those classes you get access to those for free. You get me on tap. You get a community. You get Zoom support group calls once a month. A lot of support group calls are about $30 or $40 per support group. And so I feel like a $30 copay, and some of us have more than a $30 copay for 24/7 support is really good value. And so I tried to make it as inexpensive as I can so that many people can tap into it if they're wanting this really in-depth support. If they can't afford that, they can always, go to my podcast, my YouTube channel. I have a lot of free support as well, but it's all included. How do we know when the calls are happening? And is the Crushing OCD for Kids and Teens on the community page? I just joined the AT parenting community because my 9-year-old is struggling with OCD, and unfortunately, so am I. I'm sorry to hear that, Heather. Go to the calendar page, and maybe Ayla can link that. Oh, she already did. Ayla is amazing. So Ayla is the AT parenting community manager, and she is really like my left-hand woman. I am left-handed, so she's my left-handed woman. And she is, she's very quick, and she supports you guys on all the technical stuff. And so she just wrote that you can go to the calendar page on the member website, and it will list all the live times. You do have to register for them, Heather, because they're on Zoom. And so you have to register each time. But you can go to the calendar page and register. We always have the next call on there. We also email you, Heather, and welcome to the AT parenting community, by the way. And I have to ask your other question too. We email you every Sunday. And so I know life is busy. And so I try to spoon feed as much as I can for the members. And so every Sunday you get an email that says, hey, these are all the new things in the AT parenting community this week, links to the live class that we did. We do, you can watch the replay of the parent Zoom call. We don't record the kids Zoom calls because of confidentiality. Or we'll say, here's a new worksheet that was created this week. I do have a therapist component to the AT parenting community. So if you're a therapist, you can join the therapist community, and you get like a therapist instructional video each month, and you get a clinical worksheet for your practice. And so you would be notified of that through the email. And we always have our Zoom links. Every email that you get has the Zoom links to join. And so it's super simple so that it's not overwhelming for you. A lot of members just wait until they get their Sunday email and they can just see like what's been going on and what might be helpful for them. And so hopefully that will help. The Crushing OCD for Kids and Teens class is not part of the community. I just created that last month. I had been like gifting access to every single class that I've been doing, and it's a lot. And so I was like, I'm not going to gift this one. The members did get 50% off for the first 3 days that I opened up that class, but that is not part of the community. And so that is something you'd have to purchase separately. There was something else I was going to say. We did get 12 members of the AT parenting community, 12 kids of all ages, so younger kids and teenagers, and they helped me make that course. And so that course is particularly amazing, in my opinion, because I'm not always teaching it. I have 12 kids that tell their stories. They normalize anxiety or OCD. It's actually just for OCD. They normalize OCD for other kids. I had my kids take it, and they actually, my son, who's 13, he took it and he was like, "Oh, that was really helpful." And I'm like, "How is that helpful? I teach you this stuff all the time." He's like, "But it was nice to hear from a teenager, that," because there were a lot of boys in there too. And I think that really helped normalize that for him. And so, yeah, that course was created because of the community, because I had 12 kids from the community helping me with that. So when we join, you have to choose crushing OCD or crushing anxiety. I need both. So do I pay for the other one? Yeah, I always say start with the crushing OCD one. And so you do only get one of those for free, because these classes, they're $127 each. So I'm giving you what I know you need in order to jumpstart you. But if I'm missing some gaps, yeah, you'd have to purchase that. But I do always say start with the crushing OCD course first, because anxiety is somewhat intuitive. OCD is counterintuitive. So if I know, okay, OCD can show up as symmetry, or just right OCD, or I'm having moral OCD, or I'm having sensory motor OCD. If I understand all the different ways OCD can show up, that's going to make me be able to separate out anxiety versus OCD a lot easier. And so I would recommend that you start with the OCD one if you do that. My daughter was one of the kids on it, and the class is awesome. Love how you did these little chunks to help break it up into bite-sized pieces. Oh, I don't know who's talking because it just says Facebook user, but I love that. Such brave kids. I was shocked at the level of insight and awareness and bravery to share their story and to help me create a course was incredible. And so it's my favorite course ever. And it was my favorite project ever because the kids made that. So thank you for your daughter for being a part of that, because they made that. Okay, so that's pretty much all I wanted to go over. I just wanted to tell you about the AT parenting community. Oh, it's Jennifer Jordan. Yeah, thank you so much. Kyla was amazing. So I appreciate that. Let me just see if I'm missing anything else. I don't think I am. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. I will circle back and check this thread, but it is streaming in 3 different locations. And so if you do have questions about the AT parenting community, you can always ask us directly. Ayla is manning the email. So you can always go to atparentingsurvivalhelp@yahoo.com if you have further questions. And so if you have questions, feel free to ask them right now, and I'll sit here for a little while and answer some questions about the AT parenting community. Sorry, which one should I choose if my child has OCD? Then I would choose the OCD one, how to teach your kid to crush OCD. And we will walk you through that if you are having a hard time figuring out what to choose. Members can ask in the forums, or they can email Ayla, and Ayla will talk to me and I will tell you what to choose. Sometimes parents don't know if their child has anxiety or OCD. And so the first thing that we do is we try to flesh out what that is. Not that I'm the therapist, it's psychoeducational. And we really encourage you to get your own local support. In fact, like I said, a lot of therapists recommend the AT parenting community. A lot of very well-skilled, seasoned OCD therapists recommend the community because it does take a lot of the burden off of the therapist to have a very educated, seasoned parent and seasoned child. And that's really helpful. For all those listening, highly recommend being a member. I've been a member for a few years, priceless, especially since it's ever changing as they age up. Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. So Ayla put her email there. And so I will just do that really quick so you can see it for those of you that are in different groups. Thank you for the Facebook Live. See you in the AT parenting community. Well, I love that. I'll see you there too. Don't know who you are, but that's okay because you guys will introduce yourselves. We already have people pouring in and introducing themselves in the member-only Facebook group. So I'm starting to get to know some of the new members already. And some of them I'm noticing from the series that I started to get to know a little bit. And so it's great to see you over there. The community will close on Friday. We normally close on a Thursday, but we're going to close on Friday because of Thanksgiving in the States. And so it will close on Friday at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight East Coast time. We are very firm with our closure because We don't keep our doors open. One, I have plenty of free resources for parents, but two, I can't focus. We can't develop a tight community when we have new people coming in all the time. It's like if someone keeps opening the door, it gets cold, it doesn't feel warm and cozy. And so we only open it a couple, maybe 4 times a year. And if my wait list gets really big, I might open it up as well. But that is the reason why. And so it will close on Friday. And so if you want to learn more about it, go to atparentingcommunity.com and learn about it. And you can join. Let me just answer a couple of things. Maria said, my daughter has both OCD, mainly intrusive thoughts and fears, and severe anxiety and separation anxiety. Would you still suggest the OCD course? I would, because a little bit of OCD is like a little bit of termites. It can be destructive and overwhelming. And a lot of times, sometimes that separation anxiety and the anxiety, severe anxiety, can be somewhat part of the OCD. So I always say that OCD is anxiety's bigger, badder cousin. I say that a lot. And so I want to deal with the bigger, badder cousin, because dealing with separation anxiety is much more intuitive. And so I want to fill you up with the knowledge that is not intuitive. That doesn't mean that I won't support you with the separation anxiety. And we've actually done a lot of classes on separation anxiety, and we have a quick help page where you can access in the members website for really common issues. So we have a quick help page for school issues, for separation anxiety, for emetophobia, for finding the core fear, so that you can have that quick help right there in that one spot. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope to see some of you in the AT parenting community. And I hope, regardless of whether you join the AT parenting community or not, that you connect to some of my resources, whether they're free or this in-depth support, to foster your education, your knowledge, and reduce your overwhelm. So I hope that helps. I'm going to wrap it up. I think this could really help my husband and I manage our 3 teens who are struggling. We feel like we are often drowning in the chaos. Yeah, and I think the chaos comes with that because you don't have a plan, right? I mean, the chaos comes because you're not proactively saying, this is how I'm going to handle it, or this is the one goal I'm working on. And that's easy to get into chaos. I was in chaos with my own kids until I had to step back and say, what would I tell, somebody in my practice? And then once I got intentional and I said, this is the one goal I'm working on right now, and this is the one thing I'm working on here. And I have to do that often with myself. I have to reset myself, especially with my son with ARFID and his food issues. I get really overwhelmed with that particular one because of the PANS complication and the medical stuff, and not, second guessing what I'm doing. And then I just have to say, what's my goal? Okay, today my goal is I'm getting calories on him. We're doing exposures around this particular thing. And that's my goal. And it reduces the chaos. And because I feel like I know my plan. It's not that it's going to change overnight, right? These things don't go away overnight most of the time. But when we are systematic and we know that this is my role right now, it feels better. It feels better. It feels more, less chaotic. So I hope that you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving. For those of you that are in the series Facebook group is temporary. It will be closing on Friday along with all of this. And so, feel free to stay and support each other. I'll be in there supporting you guys. If you want ongoing support and there's barriers to joining the AT parenting community, you can always join my free public Facebook group. I am not in that free public Facebook group giving advice because it's too much. But there are so many educated parents in there as well. So I hope to see some of you in the AT parenting community, and we will walk together and reduce that overwhelm and tap into some resources. Is there an app? Not for the AT parenting community. That would be very advanced for me. There is an app for my online courses, and there's an app because it's through Teachable, and Teachable has an app. And so if you took one of my online courses, you could get into the app, or you could do it on your phone. It'd be cool if I had an app developer and we were able to do it. But it's more of an intimate thing, and so I think that's why we don't have an app either, but it's a good suggestion. All right. Have a wonderful week. And I'll be back to say goodbye to you guys in the series, probably on Thursdays, Thanksgiving. No, I won't be in there on Thanksgiving. Maybe Friday I'll come in and I'll say goodbye. But I hope to say hello again in the AT parenting community. All right. Take care.